Welcome to Ticker Talk with hosts Max and Kate, podcasting from Treetown in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Ticker Talk shares the everyday success stories and science behind the heart rate-based functional aerobic fitness training practiced at CrossFit Treetown. Max and Kate explore the research, science, and practical experiences behind Ticker Training, a program developed by Max for just about everyone, your grandma, your cousin who runs marathons, and you. In this series, we'll explore what exactly heart rate-based functional aerobic fitness is, how what you eat affects how you move and how you feel, what tools to use in tracking progress, and how to fit training into your everyday life. Join us and learn something new to make a healthier you. Pace yourself.
We are live.
Okay, are you recording in GarageBand?
I am now.
All right. We are on.
Yeah, so what do you normally say when we start Ticker Talk?
Well, it's been so long since our last Ticker Talk. Welcome back to the studio. I think what we should do today is kind of talk about what's been going on since we were last here.
Yeah, and we've had a lot going on with our PNOE tests, with our metabolic tests. Is that kind of where we're taking the majority of this talk here?
Right. So last time we did any sort of podcast analyzing any sort of these metabolic tests, we just kind of were like, hey, look at what this person can do. We have now enough data. We've been busy doing PNOE tests to have noticed some stuff. And we have some before and some afters on some of our members. And short of like hyper analyzing what they mean, I think it'd be kind of fun to kind of show people what we're on the back end looking at as our members progress through our programming.
Yeah, and specifically, what are some of the things that you'd like to discuss as far as things we've been noticing, trends we're seeing?
Well, before anything else, one of the biggest things that we really say the most and base our programming on is we want everyone to become fat burners. And we've done enough podcasts on that, why you want to burn fat for a fuel source.
Yeah, can I touch on that for a minute?
Yeah, let's review.
Yeah, so not necessarily just being able to utilize fat as a fuel source and being a fat burner, but what we're showing and seeing as a trend is when people are utilizing more fat as a fuel, they're also becoming better at just using oxygen in general. And you can kind of see, I've got a test here pulled up, just a before and after. And this top graph here is O2 in, CO2 out. And you can see here, you want to have a larger gap between the two things. That just shows better utilization of oxygen. You're getting more oxygen in, you're letting out less CO2. So you're just not working as hard. Your system is being more efficient utilizing fuel.
And the ratio that we use in the PNOE analyzer is a ratio of carbon dioxide to oxygen.
Yeah, and that gives you an RQ or an RER number that gives us some insight into whether you're utilizing fat for fuel or carbohydrate for fuel.
Right. And that comes full circle about why you wear the mask and what we're looking at in our phones while we're doing the test. And to break it down, basically, you want to have as much oxygen as you can while you're doing your work,
or just
to feel the best.
And not even just during work, but just living life. Right? Because keep in mind, in the early stages of this test, this is, doing casual tasks of taking care of your life. This is 120 beats. Right? So you can see here, even on these two graphs, this person is utilizing oxygen at essentially rest better than they are here.
Right. So this is the same person on both the left and the right side of the screen.
Yeah. And we're just pulling this one up because we've noticed some trends and some things that we just want to discuss and have some conversations about with people, because we've seen this on a few athletes now. This test here on the left was taken, within a half hour of drinking some sugary sports drinks, right? And you can just see here on the ability to utilize fuel at all, both carbohydrates and fat. It's just kind of muted in comparison to this graph here. You can see here they top out at burning 5, almost 6 calories of fat per minute. This same individual without the sugary drink tops out at almost 11.5 calories of fat per minute. That's pretty significant. Especially if you are trying to, lose some body fat, or if you're just trying to become more metabolically efficient. So it's just something that we've seen now. We can show you similar graphs to this on a few different athletes that reported having, some sugary sports drinks before this test. So definitely when we're doing these tests, we need to make sure that we talk about that with people. But also, if you think about this forget about the test for a minute, and if on a daily basis you come and train, and part of your pre-training workout is utilizing a sugary drink for energy, you can see what this does to your energy utilization.
Right.
And I had some conversations with the people from PNOE regarding this, and I was like, have you seen this before? And they're like, of course. You're going to have this happen when you get an insulin spike, right? You're going to come down and you're going to have that, that time where your system is really wanting you to recover and repair and look for new fuel. So, that's just kind of showing what's going on here on this graph on this left, on the left. So, again, we're just having some noticings. We can show you. Do you have the other people here, Kate, pulled up? Same thing reported here.
And his second one is on that.
Yeah,
side.
so this is the same athlete that then came and did without the sugary sports drink. You can see the utilization again is much different. Even the carbohydrate utilization is different. Okay, so again, just things we're noticing.
So one thing that I say when I'm analyzing these tests with our clients is, without knowing anything else about them, because we bring new members in, so I don't know these people yet.
Right.
And I can see what they fuel themselves with based on what their body pulls fuel from to do some sort of workout.
Correct.
The interesting thing was with this person, actually, let's pull up person number 3 in the left. Person number 3 comes in, and he does a lot of really great work in the gym. I actually knew him as an athlete, and he did a PNOE test just as one of those, I want to make sure that my zones are dialed in. And we have a lot of people that want to make sure that their heart rate zones that they're working in are doing the most for them.
And let's just talk a little bit about him for a minute. When he is doing work in class, he is moving well. He's not overly sweaty. He's breathing through his nose generally.
Enjoys himself.
Yes, and is seeing dramatic improvements. So when we saw this test, it surprised us. Correct.
Surprised us, and then when we really sat down to think about it, maybe he's not quite as efficient as he seems on some days when he fuels himself differently.
Yeah, and again, I do want to point out this ability to utilize oxygen is what we would call a smooshed graph.
It was interesting because he reported having a hard time breathing in the mask, and he blamed the mask.
Just the mask, yeah.
Which, there is something. I've done a number of tests, and it does kind of, it changes your thought pattern on how you breathe in the mask.
But usually that gets sorted out here in the first 200 seconds. That's why we start everybody out so slow on the thing.
For 2 minutes. But we see this, and this is not a person, I don't care at all about what he pulls for fuel. All I notice initially is that he doesn't pull anything for fuel.
Correct.
Until the very end when he has a really high output.
Right. And this is another sugary drink.
And we didn't know this at the time, though. And it came out later when we're like, okay, so something's going on. Either you're stressed or it's your diet. Why are you so flat?
Right.
And it was funny because at that exact moment, he tipped over a shaker bottle that had a sugary drink in it. Which is how he was delivering some sort of, I don't know what it was. It was like a vitamin or something.
Right.
Which, ding, 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 ding. If you put that in. So I look down at this bottom chart on the left and I see okay, so you're demanding kind of to the right of the left. You're demanding your body to do work, and then your body has to fuel it somehow. And he's not really pulling either thing. He's not pulling all of the sugar that he was drinking in, which was interesting.
When you start looking at enough of these graphs, when you see this kind of thing and this kind of, you would expect to see this from potentially, a very unhealthy person.
Yeah,
somebody untrained. This is somebody that is training exactly as we ask and has been doing almost 2 hours a day, right? Yeah. He trains a lot. So we have him scheduled for another test, so that will be really fun to just see if,
how it changes based on small dietary
but
changes.
you can see if we see a similar change on this individual like we saw.
Yeah, person 2 is now up on both sides. So let's compare those two.
On this individual, right, this is sugary drink. This is not sugary drink. And you can just see the amount of fuel that is being utilized. And if your goal is body composition or just being healthier and feeling better, losing some pounds of fat, there is no question which person here is going to potentially reach those goals faster.
Right.
You can see it. So again, I understand, and I'm not trying to say that the only factors in losing excess body fat is being able to burn fat. But if we can take at least one variable out of that, we're going to help, I would assume, people with having more success.
So having this person before and after on here, he mentioned in a meeting yesterday when we were talking about this, like, okay, the first time this is what you look like, a chaotic and stressed individual. 2 weeks later, your test looks much more in what we would want to see. We see a lot more oxygen utilization. We see a lot more even fuel usage. And we asked him what he did in the 2 weeks besides consciously thinking about what he was putting in his body.
Yeah. So two things he did here. I did prescribe a whole bunch of work at 120 beats per minute, and he's done it.
He did.
Okay. And then he also kind of made some food and dietary changes. He's getting close to being, in ketosis here probably. He's still got some work to do if that is his true goal, but
full disclaimer, he has eaten that way before.
Yep.
He's done all sorts of different lead diets. So for him to consciously think about, we're going to say hey, cut out the pre-workout drink and go back to thinking about what you're putting in your body. It's pretty easy for him just to start thinking. That won't work for everybody.
Right.
And he knew that's how he felt was when he was eating that diet.
Right. He is accustomed to that.
So, somebody else, it may just be just cut out fast food again. Right? Make your own food.
Which is a great lead into kind of the other great thing about being able to do these metabolic tests on people is a lot of conversation occurs and just really reminders for people that, hey, this is important for your health. Because this can lead to greater performance, this one here, in my opinion. And it can also lead to greater health because, again, if we're looking at the ability to utilize oxygen, and let's just pretend that oxygen is important for life. Can we pretend for a minute? And you can see the difference in this person to this person, and just this person is going through life with less stress and strain.
I bet that person can carry their laundry basket up their basement stairs really fast. Right. Have you ever done that where you go and you run upstairs real fast?
You get tired.
I mean, you can look at these two people and guesstimate what would, running up a flight of stairs, which is something you do at home if you live in a 2-level house all the time.
Right. This person won't get winded.
So the interesting comment that the person made then is he goes, all right, so I changed my diet. Now, he did do the prescribed work at a new heart rate, and he did not CrossFit at that because it was a pretty low zone. Slow. But he committed to it. But his first comment was, sweet, so it's just my diet.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Right.
When we test him again in 10 more days after he's followed his prescription now of his food that he's doing a good job on. And he trains, closer to the, 135 to 145 that we've prescribed. Hopefully we'll see, this fat utilization and carbohydrates come together even longer and even further for him.
So the first graph on the left, we prescribed him some rowing and or biking work at what heart rate?
I said 120 beats per minute.
Okay.
And he was already seeing increases in that. So the first time he rode at that, it was I think he said 240 per 500 meters. And then he reported at 220 per 500 meters. That's when I knew it was okay, we probably could come and test you again. Now, he probably saw such an exaggerated change in an extreme improvement because he was cleaning up his diet as well.
How bad do you want it?
Correct. No, so again, I'm not going to sit here and try to say it's just the training that the ticker programming is doing.
No, because it's only been 2 weeks,
But-
and this is one person.
But then again, how do you differentiate ticker training from lifestyle and everything else? Well,
Right.
ticker training does involve lifestyle. This pulling up this test had a conversation with, what is going on? What are you doing? Mm-hmm. And he reported, I'm not doing a good job. Right? This test, potentially, this conversation gave him some motivation, some insight, whatever you want to call it, to make some changes, to have a dramatic improvement in his ability to utilize oxygen.
Right. So in this first test, he was prescribed some extra work at 120, and now he did that, and he cleaned up his diet. He consciously thought about his diet.
Yep.
So then in the second test, we now are recommending that he work at
145.
a much higher heart rate.
Yep.
So changes were made. And then we'll redo another test in a couple weeks and see what happens. Now,
and hopefully for testing fashion and to take out variables, he'll continue to do a good job with his food, and
Right.
and we'll see this continue to improve, and we can say, yeah, it's both things. Both things help work together. I read and I listen to a lot of metabolic efficiency people that have been doing this for much longer than us, and they both put a large emphasis on diet. The one guy says as much as 70% of this ability to utilize fat can be seen from diet.
everybody has heard you can't out-train a bad diet.
Sure. But we are also seeing that you can improve your ability to utilize fat through more than just diet, right?
Correct.
Now, to get the best results from what we're seeing, there's a combination of the two things.
It's the whole package.
And I don't think that's a surprise to anyone.
No, so we
Right?
have an athlete that I think we have at least the two and I don't know on the screen. We've done several tests on, and he's a great one because diet is a struggle in his life. In terms of, I wouldn't almost say it's a struggle. It's just not as clean cut as our previous athlete that
Sure.
can just, as a single guy that can just change his diet, as in this guy has, a job and a family and kids and a whole bunch of other stuff going on.
Right.
So I know there's at least two on this one. So we have a series of tests with him. And we have a first test, a great baseline. And we offered him, hey, this is where we want you training.
Right. This is his phenomenal one. Do we have all three of them up here? Yeah, we do. This was his first one,
Okay.
right? And we've talked about this before in previous podcasts.
Yeah.
I think this was the one just the other day. Sorry. This is his first one. Yeah, this is his first one. And he had been training with us but for quite some time, but started to see less progress. He was still struggling with his heart rate. So when we did this, we told him to go home and, we recommended training at 120 beats. And then he did that, made some major changes, also talked about cleaning up his food a little bit. We sent him away with training at, 20 beats higher almost, and he was able to utilize a lot of fat during exercise and train. You can see here the ability to utilize oxygen.
He felt good in this period. We
Yes.
gave him these new zones, and he was really motivated. So this talks again about that motivation of having this ability to check in. Like, work here, dude, and see what you got.
Yeah, and I do want to make a point here that this second test was done about 10 days after vacation.
Vacation.
Right? So Matt self-reported that he felt great. He was less stressed. Mm-hmm. So now when we pull him into this latest test, this same individual you could potentially say is regressed a little bit if you're talking about utilizing oxygen. You can see here he still is doing okay, but not as well as he was on that other test. But if you have a conversation with this person now, he will talk about the fact that, two people were let go at his office, and he's now doing their job.
He now has kids in two different schools, so
Yep.
he's got the stress of
Running
commuting.
around and all of that stuff.
This kind of just proves that we're not just all about the before and the after. We can't just give you one thing and change it and you're going to skip off with
Correct.
the unicorns over the puppy rainbow.
Right. The unicorns over the puppy rainbow.
There's a rainbow made out of dyed puppies.
Not dead, died.
Dyed.
Got it, okay.
Like colorful puppies
Cool.
that the unicorns prance on.
Right.
But that it's a process and it's all this. And life,
Yeah.
comes in and out. And it's important to really... listen to your body and kind of figure out. Matt actually asked us, like, I want to check in.
Yep.
And sometimes we're like, ooh, you're feeling good? And he's like, I don't know. I just feel like, training has been different.
Yeah. So after we looked at this and we talked, it kind of brought up some conversations about food and things like that.
Food, stress,
Yeah.
life.
And I actually feel like maybe he's under eating a little bit, which is because he feels hungry often. And he's
Right.
trying to do a good job with his food, but I have a feeling that, keep in mind, not eating enough food is a huge stress and strain on somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing that, you'll actually hold on to fat just because your body thinks it's dying.
Which would show in that bottom, on the left side, the bottom right-hand chart shows that, he's using fuel. He's doing pretty well.
Yep.
But he's a big guy.
Yeah.
He's tall.
Yeah,
He's like
6'4".
6'4".
Yeah.
He should be using more fuel to do an outward,
Well,
effort.
when he was feeling good, he was.
Oh, look, he was.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And his body was really efficient at that point, and it's not now. It's the whole...
Correct. You could just see the difference. When the work started getting harder, he was more stressed and strained than prior. You can just see it. So, in comparison to his previous test, you can just see this here is, at lower strain, he was doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But when we started asking, so keep this in mind, when you're given training zones, you can see that you're pretty efficient in those early training zones, and he was doing better all the way up to around 145 beats. But when he started working harder than that, something was going on.
Right.
So if he continues to train above that 150, he's going to put more stress and strain on himself than he's capable of adapting to.
So he left, and, he's kind of a funny guy. He's like, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's just, we just recommended doing what he's doing, really.
Right.
But eating some more food.
Well, we can cross-reference too, and we did. We looked at his self-loops reports of where his heart rate was over the activities that he had done over the past month, and he's very, very consistent 3 times a week. Mm-hmm. And we started noticing, actually, and he said it was harder to keep his heart rate in zone. He spent a lot of time in the 160s, which are over his crossover.
Right.
So he's like, got it. Slow down, eat better. Check, done.
Yeah.
And he will. I'm sure he'll go back and he'll work on those things, and then we'll come back and recheck in, and we can figure out if life stresses are managed more. Because,
again, what we're hoping for is to be able to have these kind of changes where you just utilize more fat as a fuel source. We could kind of briefly talk, Kate, about maybe this is a good time to lead into our next talk about fat math.
Yeah, so we'll do another podcast on that. Kind of what we've noticed with these athletes. We really were just kind of focusing on what you fuel yourself with and how this plays out in your training. And we can, put a mask on you and tell you what you're burning for fuel.
Right.
Now, we can take that one step farther and
Let's
break it down into the specific, fat cals are X and you're burning this many. Because we are now saying, hey, look, he's using this many cals per minute.
Right. So let's just kind of give a quick insight into this, okay? So at approximately, we'll go to this athlete on the right here. At 155 beats per minute heart rate, this person is utilizing just over 11 calories of fat per minute. Okay, so let's just, multiply that by 60 for an hour. If I'm not mistaken, 60 times
11
is 660
Yep.
calories of fat, correct? Mm-hmm. As opposed to what he's doing here at, let's just use high intensity, 167 beats.
Okay.
At 167 beats, he's utilizing approximately 4.3 calories of fat per minute.
258 in an hour.
Right. And what was the last one? 660. So if fat loss, body composition, health, longevity is your goal.
And you lived in a vacuum.
Yeah, and you lived in a vacuum. It doesn't sound to me like working and training for an hour every day at high intensity is going to help this person with their goal.
Not if their goal is, to do that speedy.
Correct.
And we have a screen open where we have a whole bunch of these, and we'll go over a bunch of athletes in this way. But, the long story short is when you're using a fuel efficiently, like this athlete on the right is, in his fat, he is burning a lot of grams per minute.
A lot.
A lot of them. And then they're being fat grams.
Right.
And it's 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. I mean,
Yep.
obviously you want to burn the most amount of fat grams per minute you spend exercising so that those pounds of fat come off your body.
Yep. And let's just touch one other thing that we've noticed. And if we go through all of our in-body body composition scores and tests, and we look at, so if we look at all of the ones that have let's just call it the least amount of overall body fat, especially the lowest scores of visceral fat around the organs, and then we look at the people that utilize fat the best or the most efficiently in these metabolic tests, we are finding that those two people are the same. Right. So the people that utilize fat the best and the people that are the leanest or the least percentage of fat are, people that utilize fat seem to be lean. We're just noticing that, and I don't want to put too much emphasis on that, but it is something to note.
I want to highlight, hold on, a little bit on people that have the least amount of body fat. These are not necessarily, I don't want to get caught up in the moment. These are not necessarily skinny people either.
No.
And we can get into the
They're
whole skinny
muscular.
fat thing.
Yeah, they're muscular, they're strong.
So you can't look around our gym and be like, she's skinny, she's burning fat, that's why.
Yeah,
it's not how
like
it works
that.
at
it's
all.
Not like, because...
this is stuff you can't see, which is why we have this data to look at, is that percentage-wise and calories per minute-wise, we are noticing that these things correspond.
Correct. And when we talk about lean, I'm talking about for men that are around 10 to 15% body fat, women that are 20 to 25.
Yeah.
Those two categories of people utilize fat extremely well.
Right.
Now, is it because they're lean that they're utilizing fat, or are they lean because they're utilizing fat?
Right.
I don't know if it's
We're
a
still
chicken.
learning.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a chicken or the egg, but we're certainly noticing it, and I think it's an important thing for us to be beginning conversations around, because we're seeing trends.
It's kind of funny. It was a while back. Somebody asked me, the office door here where we are podcasting right now is ajar, and this person had never noticed what we had in the office. And I was like, well, what did you think we did in there? And he goes, I wondered what you did with all the, we upload the data and we have all this stuff. He's like, I wondered what you did with all that data. And that's it. We're always looking at this stuff and we're learning. I mean, that's why we want feedback from the members to tell us how they feel on this stuff, because we are looking at these trends and we're seeing things.
Yes.
And everybody can help us. The big takeaway is this is why we want...
Yeah, well, and that's why we're having this podcast now, is because, our community, we're in this together.
Yeah.
And, if we're going to kill no pain, no gain, and we're going to help each other reach our goals, right? Having more and more data, more and more conversations around what's working, what's not working.
I feel good today. I felt bad last week, or I suddenly can't keep my heart rate under control.
Sure. Yep. These are all positive things from being able to test, analyze, and start conversations. So, you got anything else for today, Kate?
No, I want everyone to keep up the good work and keep that conversation going.
If you want to continue to have, be in this conversation, sign up for PNOE. Let's do a metabolic test and see how you can help teach us, and we can teach you things that we're seeing and move forward with all this.
Consciously notice things like us.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah.